AGM for the Canadian Canoe Museum. I'm Kevin Malone, Chair of the Canadian Board of Directors, and we're so glad to have all of you join us today. The Canadian Canoe Museum respectfully acknowledges that we are situated on the Treaty 20 Niitsitapi territory and the traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties First Nations. The Canadian Canoe Museum also recognizes the contribution of Indigenous peoples, including First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, in shaping this community and the country as a whole. As an organization that stewards the world's largest and most significant collection of canoes, kayaks, and paddle watercraft, we will honor and share the cultural histories and stories within the collection in all that we do. 2024 was a landmark year, one defined by many firsts and certainly deep gratitude. In May, we officially opened the doors to our new home. Since then, the space has exceeded expectations, coming alive through anticipated milestones such as opening day, the unveiling of our collection and exhibition halls, and a strong update of our programming. And unexpected yet meaningful moments. A local singing group sharing music in our halls, bird watchers gathering at dawn on the shoreline, and neighbors visiting the cafe for a morning coffee as part of their daily routines. These moments, large and small, affirm the vision behind this project and reflect the role we hope this museum will play in the community. 2024 marked the beginning of a new chapter, made possible by years of dedication, collaboration, and trust. We are sincerely grateful to our staff, board, donors, volunteers, and the tradespeople who brought this place to life and continue to return with pride. With most aspects of the project now behind us and with the foundation built, we now have the joy and responsibility of bringing to life the programs that we have long envisioned. Today's National Canoe Day program, with the book launch, our AGM, and the preview of our new exhibit, the Voyager Canoe Cruise, is emblematic of the museum's purpose and goals. With the construction project finally complete, we are able to focus on operations and the programming of long dreamt of opportunities finally coming to realization. At this point, I will turn it over to Kate Kennington, Development Manager, to walk you through the technical details of the meeting. How this meeting will run. Kate?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The AGM should last half an hour and will be followed by a presentation from Carolyn Hislop, our Executive Director, reflecting on 2024, providing an overview of the very exciting year ahead. We aim to be finished by 5:30 p.m. We do have a lot of people joining us today, both in person and virtually. And for this meeting, please note that the meeting is being recorded. And for those of you joining virtually, as it is a webinar, your camera and microphones will remain on. Automatic closed captioning is on for accessibility. If you would like to turn it off for yourself, click the CC button at the bottom of your screen and then select Hide Subtitles. We will be explaining the voting process and technical considerations in a moment. Please know that if you are experiencing any technical issues, we have staff standing by to support you. You can ask a question in the chat located at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to help you. We will now begin by asking everyone joining virtually to type your full name in the chat box if you have not done so that we can record your attendance and determine quorum. And thank you. I will now pass it back over to our chair, Mr. Malone.
Thank you, Kate. It is my pleasure to call our AGM to order. All members who were in good standing 30 days in advance of the AGM are eligible to vote and received an AGM package with the agenda, proxy forms, minutes from last year, and our financial statements by email, or view them on the dedicated AGM webpage. This package included all resolutions that will be debated and voted upon today. Our quorum is 20 members or 10% of members, whichever is lowest. We have 1,073 memberships in good standing, so therefore 20 members constitute quorum. Kate, can you please confirm that we have 20 members here or present or virtually present?
I can report that quorum has been met and we can proceed with our official business.
Great, thank you, Kate. As outlined in our virtual AGM information package that was distributed by email to all members, we are using an assumed consent voting process. And therefore, we'll be assuming all members in attendance or voting by proxy are voting in favor of motions unless objections are otherwise made, which I will ask each time and leave a pause for people to object. Members of the board of directors will be moving the motions. If you would like to object to a motion, please enter your objection using the chat function if you are joining virtually, or raise your hand if you are here in person. Please note, to ensure that we can keep the discussion and meeting moving, we request you keep your inquiries to one question and one follow-up per person per agenda item. Today's agenda was pre-circulated in advance of this meeting. Our proposed agenda is approval of the 2024 annual meeting minutes from Wednesday, June 26, 2024. Approval of the 2024 audited financial statements. Approval of appointment of auditors for 2025. Election of board of directors. Bylaw amendments. Consideration of any other business as may come before the meeting, and then adjournment. May I have a motion from a director to approve the agenda?
Chair, I, Brian Buttigieg, ask that the agenda be approved.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Sue. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or discussions of the agenda before we proceed with voting? If you'd like to object to this motion, please enter your objection using the chat function if you are joining virtually, or raise your hand if you are here in person. Are there any objections to the motion? I see none. The motion is passed. Thank you. The Canadian Canoe Museum 2024 AGM minutes were sent to all members by email in advance of this meeting. Motion 2. May I have a motion from a director to approve the AGM minutes from June 26, 2024?
Mr. Chair, I, Tim Rutherford, move that the minutes of the last annual meeting of the members held on June 26, 2024 be approved.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a seconder for the motion? Please, Anne. Seconded by Ann Whipper. Thank you, Anne. Are there any questions or discussions of the minutes before we proceed with voting? Again, if you would like to object to this motion, please enter your objection using the chat function if you are joining virtually, or raise your hand if you are here in person. Are there any objections to this motion? The motion is passed. Thank you. I will now introduce Director and Treasurer Kate Furnell to discuss the 2024 audited financial statements. Kate?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Kate Parnell, and I'm the treasurer of the Canadian Canoe Museum. We've completed our financial year ending December 31st, 2024. Members received the audited financial statements by email and on the AGM webpage in advance of this meeting. 2024 was a transformational year for the Canadian Canoe Museum. In May, we proudly opened the doors to our stunning new waterfront home at 2077 Ashburnham, a major milestone in our $450 million capital campaign. This achievement was made possible through the unwavering support of our donors, partners, government funders, and community. The museum received a clean audit, and Grant Thornton has provided their unqualified opinion. The board has approved the 2024 financial statements for recommendation to the membership, and here's some highlights. A successful year of fundraising with significant donation activity over the course of the year, totaling $3.4 million. Admissions, tours, events, and programs have exceeded all of our initial projections. We hosted our first weddings and events, ran successful summer camps, and several workshops. For accounting purposes, our building came into use, and you will see substantial amortization in our financial statements this year onwards. Old museum property at 910 Monaghan Road has been completely moved over to our new museum, and the sale of the property closed in May of 2025. The majority of the capital project is complete, with remaining costs and work wrapping up mid-2025. Thank you to Grant Thornton for performing the audit work this year, and thank you to the staff, volunteers, donors, and project partners for their ongoing dedication and support. Are there any questions about the audited financial statements? I will move the motion. Mr. Chair, I, Kate Farnell, move to approve the Canadian Canoe Museum's 2024 audited financial statements. Is there a seconder for the motion?
I, Rob Clark, second the motion.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any further questions or discussion of the audited financial statements before we proceed with voting? If you would like to object to this motion, please enter your objection using the chat function if you're joining virtually, or raise your hand if you're here in person. Are there any objections to this motion? I see none. Motion has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Canadian Canoe Museum would like to appoint Wilkinson and Company LLP as our audit firm for 2025, based on the recommendation of the Finance and Audit Committee. I'll move that motion. Mr. Chair, I, Kate Farnell, move to appoint Wilkinson and Company LLP as the auditor for the Canadian Canoe Museum for fiscal year 2025. Is there a seconder for this motion?
I, Mark Broadwood, second the motion.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions or discussion before we proceed with voting? If you would like to object to this motion, please enter your objection using the chat function if you are joining virtually, or raise your hand if you are here in person. Are there any objections to this motion? The motion is passed. Thank you. Thank you, Kate. I just want to acknowledge Kate. She's taken over from Tim, who's sitting right behind. It's been a great asset to both the museum as a board member, but also chairing our finance committee. So thank you, Kate. On to directors, new directors. Any persons to be elected as directors must have been proposed in advance of the meeting by the governance committee or by the members as provided in the museum's bylaws. One new director has been proposed by the governance committee, and a brief biography of this nominee was included in the meeting package. Kevin Kamagi Mason is Inuit from Nunavut in Nunavut, a beneficiary of the Nunavut Land Claims Agreement. He is the founder and principal consultant of Akini Consulting, where he delivers Inuit specific facilitation, cultural competency training, HR consulting, and strategic advisory services to Indigenous organizations and public sector clients. Kevin has more than a decade of experience advancing Inuit rights and equal access in both public and community contexts. He has served as senior policy advisor and senior communications advisor at Inuit Canada, Tammy, and also contributed to the initiatives of the government on Nunavut. His work focuses on cross-cultural communication, team dynamics, and building strong working relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous partners. Nominated for re-election as directors of the museum commencing as of today's date are Meg Beckel, Tim Rutherford, Brian Buttigieg, Kate Farnell, Meredith Brown, and Brian Groves. All other directors are in midterm of their service. Elisa Johnston, William Rivet, Doris Stammel, Garth Walbridge, Victoria Grant, Jenny Ingram, and myself, Kevin Malone. Deborah Jacobs will remain on the board as a non-voting director representing the Curve Lake First Nation Council. And thank all of you for your renewed commitment. Nominated for election as directors of the museum commencing as of today's date are Kevin Magny Mason for a first term of 2 years, Meg Beckel for a second term of 2 years, Tim Rutherford, Brian Buttigieg, and Kate Farnell for a third term of 2 years, Meredith Brown and Brian Groves for a fourth term of 2 years. Since there can be no further nominations by our bylaws, I declare the nominations closed. All those nominated have consented to act as directors of the museum, And so I declare those nominated to be duly elected directors of the museum by acclamation to hold office until expiry of their respective terms for which they are elected or until their successors are elected and or appointed. Whichever comes first. There are two past directors I'd like to acknowledge. Jocelyn Brown. Jocelyn joined the board in 2017 and has taken on many roles during her 8 years on the board. Jocelyn was chair of the design committee for the project and chair of the grand opening committee. We hope that she will continue as an active member of the philanthropy committee and collections committee. Jocelyn has brought great strategic thinking and insights, as well as a lifelong love of paddling. I'd like to thank her for her 8 years of service. Thank you, Jocelyn. I have one director in memory, Chris McLean. I want to acknowledge and recognize former board of director Chris McLean. Chris moved to Peterborough to retire after spending his career with Molson Breweries, having been responsible for the company's various construction projects in North America. He sought us out as he was looking to get involved in a new community. How fortunate we were to welcome Chris's expertise as he joined the board in June of 2019. And luckier yet, when he resigned from the board to become a project manager for the new museum built in August 2021. Chris was a quiet, unwavering champion of the museum in this role and carried the joy and burden of the project schedule, budget, and management. He loved seeing the museum coming together and was a steady hand for Carolyn and Jeremy throughout the project. Chris could always be counted on to figure something out, and he worked tirelessly to ensure the success of the project. One of the board members called Chris brilliant. In every situation, he was steady, thoughtful, reasonable, and decisive. If Chris ventured into a board discussion, we would all relax and listen, knowing his comments merited everyone's attention. Project manager always seemed too ordinary a title for Chris's contributions. I'd say he was part McGuire, part Bulldog, part statesman, and part saint. After the completion of the construction project, Chris rejoined the board in June of 2024. We were grateful to have him return as director. However, in February this year, Chris resigned for health reasons and sadly passed away in March. It's a shame that Chris did not get to enjoy the museum that he had such a major role in building. Our thoughts are with Chris's wife, Kim, and their family during this difficult time. To Chris, thank you for your tremendous support for the past 5.5 years. You will be missed by all of us. Chris. Bylaw amendments. There are 2 amendments. First, renaming the governance and nominating committee to the governance committee, and the addition of 2 standing committees of the board. The nomination subcommittees. The nomination subcommittee shall be composed of at least 3 members, one of whom shall be a director. As a subcommittee of the governance committee, the nomination subcommittee shall be charged with the responsibility of assisting the board and its committees by securing the diverse, talented leadership needed to see forth the museum's strategic goals. The nomination subcommittee shall meet as often as required to fulfill its mandate. The chair of the nomination subcommittee shall be a member of the governance committee. The second committee is the Executive Director Performance Evaluation Committee. The Executive Director Performance Evaluation Committee shall be composed of at least 3 members, including the chair of the board, the chair of governance committee, and the chair of finance and audit committee. The Executive Director Performance Evaluation Committee shall be charged with the responsibility of conducting the annual performance evaluation of the executive director. The Executive Director Performance Evaluation Committee shall meet as often as required to fulfill its mandate. The chair of the Executive Performance Evaluation Committee shall be the chair of the board. May I have a motion from a director to approve the amendments up to the bylaws?
Mr. Chair, I, Victoria Grant, move to approve the amendment to the operational bylaws.
Thank you, Victoria. Is there a seconder for the motion?
I, Russ Musgrove, second the motion.
Thank you, Russ. Are there any questions or discussions before we proceed with voting? If you'd like to object to this motion, please enter your objection using the chat function if you are joining virtually, or raise your hand if you are here in person. Are there any objections to this motion? The motion is passed. Thank you. Moving on to other business. No resolutions or consideration of other business were raised ahead of the meeting. Rochella, do we have any lingering questions from the chat that need to be addressed? None, thank you. Adjournment. Well, that wraps up the official portion of our AGM. We will officially adjourn the business portion of the meeting. May I have a motion by a director to adjourn the meeting?
Mr. Chair, I, Lisa Johnson, move that the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a seconder?
I, Captain Rogers Wilson, second Tim Olson.
Thank you, Daphne. The motion is passed. I call the formal business of our 2025 AGM to a close. This AGM is my last responsibility as board chair of the Canadian Canoe Museum. As I reflect on the past 2 years as chair, I'd like to express my gratitude to my fellow board members, the leadership team led by Carolyn and Jeremy, and the staff of the museum. What a whirlwind. The journey to find the museum's new home on the water's edge has had its share of twists, turns, and rapids. But we have collectively, and the important word there is collectively, always found the right way and the right path. Upon reflection, the journey has never been linear, which has made this project so rewarding. Our efforts have seen us recognized by National Geographic, New York Times, Time Magazine, Architect Canada, to name a few, and of course, the B24 this morning. I've had the opportunity to engage with many in the Peterborough, Lakefield, and surrounding cottage area, and everyone is so thankful and positive about the museum, how spectacular it is, and how important it is to the local community, Ontario, and Canada. It's been a privilege to follow two great chairs in John Ronson and Vicki Grant, working with an engaged, passionate, and talented team of board members, and assisting really a best-in-class leadership team. Truly, it's been one of my most cherished responsibilities as CCM board chair to guide this organization in building a museum of national standing that will connect Canadians and international visitors to the land, water, and canoe. Thank you to all of you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the new chair of the Canadian Canoe Museum Board of Directors, Brian Whittaker. At the Wilderness Canoe Symposium in February of 2020, Brian chatted with Carolyn and indicated his interest in volunteering with the museum. Boy, oh boy, Brian. Wasn't that a journey? He was quickly recruited to the building committee and joined the board in 2021. We are so grateful to Brian, and now he will take on the role as chair. Brian?
Thank you, Kevin. Again, a round of applause for Kevin for all he's done for us. I am humbled and honored and excited to take on this role. It is humbling to be following in the footsteps of so many visionary and dedicated former chairs, such as Kevin Malone, Victoria Grant, and all who helped bring this museum to what it is today. It's an honor to be here as a first-generation Canadian who fell in love with this country, its lands, and its waters, and especially its most valuable asset, its most valuable cultural asset, the canoe. An asset that links the history and lives of the original stewards of these lands and waters with stories and lives of those who joined them in more recent years. And I'm excited about where we can go next with such an enthusiastic and dedicated staff. Led by that indefatigable energy, our executive director, Carolyn Hislop, that master of storytelling and encyclopedic knowledge of everything canoe, our curator, Jeremy Ward, our able assistant curator, Beth Stanley, and the always available for everything, Kate Kennington, and so many others. I'm equally excited in knowing the quality and talent and dedication of our board members who participate actively in discussions on all matters that keep this place running, from governance to collections management to finance and community engagement. With this staff, this board, a small army of volunteers, our generous donors, and community partners, we have built a solid foundation for an institution that will continue to tell that most uniquely Canadian story, that of the canoe, and what it means to all of those who were and all of those who will be part of these lands and waters which we are so privileged to call our home. So I thank you for the privilege of being chair of this wonderful board and organization.
So on behalf of the board and staff of the museum, I would like to take this time to acknowledge Kevin's leadership, his time, his commitment that he brought to his term as chair of the board. But it wasn't enough for Kevin to be chair of the board. He remained the chair of the fundraising cabinet. And we opened this museum having met our fundraising goal. Thank you, Kevin. Prior to being chair of the board, Kevin also chaired the finance committee. I believe over the last few years, I would hasten to say Kevin has spent significant time on the 401. But because he's always been keen to be here at the museum for events, staff appreciation lunches, volunteer gatherings, and public events. I'd also like to thank Mona and acknowledge her support in supporting Kevin over these last few years. The other thing I'd like to do is I'd also be pleased to welcome Brian Budeby as our new chair of the board. Brian joined the board, but soon became chair of the building committee and provided the leadership in the sale of Monahan Road. Building is done, Monahan Road is gone. This position takes up a lot of time. So I'd also like to thank Pat for providing her support to Brian in taking on this position. Kevin, thank you for your role and for the work you've done.
There's a little tradition at the Canoe Museum that all chairs, we show our gratitude with a paddle. Because I hope over their time as chair, we've inspired them to continue to get out on the water and continue to connect with nature and of course the canoe. So Kevin, here's your beautiful paddle. And that wonderful associate curator you mentioned, Beth Stanley, Beth is responsible for the engraving of this beautiful.
Staff here?
She's just out there with the kids.
Okay.
Says on the bottom, we paddle together, and we sure do, Kevin. There. There you go. It worked.
So I just wanted to thank Brian, and my last duty is to actually introduce Carolyn and Jeremy. But before I turn over to Carolyn, because Carolyn likes to take charge, as we all know. As members here, we are blessed to have an amazing leadership team and staff. And yes, we've had great support from the board. We've had great support from the community. But without great leadership at the top, we would not be here. And so on behalf of the board, and I think I speak on behalf of the members, Carolyn and Jeremy, you are two of the best. And this team's the best. Thank you.
There's no words for that. We are so fortunate to have such wonderful people involved in this organization. How am I doing? That's a bit better. That's a bit better, isn't it? There we go. 5 minutes. Take charge. That's what I'm gonna do. So, I mean, we've had the year of gratitude. We wanted to, Rachel, I need your help.
This is too funky.
We have had the most incredible year. We were really fortunate to have spent to have purchased this property and to have moved through construction. Lots of stumbles along the way and challenges during construction and COVID and material escalation, you name it. There were so many challenges, but at the end of it, we opened this museum last May. And many of you were here with us to recognize that moment. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without you. But we moved from May 2024 into our first full year of thanks. This was a year that we coined the year of thanks. And many of you were able to come for some of our firsts. And having cycled through the first full year of operations, you heard from Kate and from Kevin that this place is thriving. We are so fortunate to have created a place where people see themselves and want to come in to the Canoe Museum and experience it over and over and over. And we've also created this beautiful community hub through the museum. And partners like the Peterborough Field Naturalist, Sue, it's lovely to see you here. To know that this campus is available for a lot of the birds that Kevin was mentioning are part of Sue's team. But the waterfront and the campus is now this wonderful habitat, and people are able to use it for uses that we didn't really even know they were going to come to fruition. So 2024 was an exceptional year. A couple of great stats. There were 1,200 people here that visited for the grand opening weekend. By December, we had surpassed our expectations of visitation. We thought we might be in somewhere in the 20,000 people range. For over 40,000 people visited between May and December of 2024. And this year is going fantastic. We held 11 workshops right off the bat. Beth was running her artisan workshops and selling out. We roped Jeremy into many of paddle making courses and canoe restoration and Wanigan making this year, and they were fantastic successes. We started our summer camps last year, and we had our day camps. Some of Kate's kids were in our day camp, and we had this fantastic summer of summer programming. We have our canoe and kayak rentals up and going in 2024, and we started our Voyager canoe tours. Not only that, we also rented this space out, and this was a high demand space in 2024, and we worked out the bugs. Many of you probably experienced some of the bugs in the first couple months, but we figured it out. We hired this incredible person by the name of Simone, and she has just tightened this entire program up so beautifully. So 2024 from admissions and visitor was incredibly successful. But grounded in that, of course, is the work that the Canoe Museum is doing with Indigenous communities all across the country. And so we wouldn't be able to do this work if we weren't also recognizing our logo.
Right, I guess you could call it the logo acknowledgement journey that the Canoe Museum is on. For years now, many years now, James Raffin, former executive director, this venture of traveling north to Fort William First Nation on the northwest end of Lake Superior. It strengthened our relationships with members there and with the community as a whole. So in March, before grand opening, we journeyed up, we snowshoed in with chief, some council members and community members to the rock face where this is. And of course, we have told you before of the reimagining of the logo, where it is now surrounded by an interpretation of the rock face that it's painted on, in order to say this image could come from so many places in Canada. This one comes from Pictured Lake on Fort William First Nation territory. Our initiative with Fort William First Nation this year is not to travel up, but indeed to host as one of our builders in residence, Helen Pelche from Fort William First Nation. She's an artist who works with wheatgrass with birch bark. And so she'll be doing demonstrations here in the workshops downstairs and fishing classes as well. That's happening second week in July. All right, I keep going, April 20th, so looking back, there was this marathon, of course, just before, the grand opening. We brought from all corners of the country, all of the contributors to the exhibits. These are experts, canoe, makers, language speakers, artists, knowledge holders, writers, filmmakers. And they were with us for the preview of the exhibits, to see their work and the work of the others who also contributed, to meet each other, to see the collective voices that are under this roof before the rest of the world did. We also, just a few days before grand opening, we had a travel media, preview of the museum as a sneak peek. And of course, May 12th, grand opening on May 12th, and on May 13th, we had our community in celebration here at the museum. We were packed, as I love to look back on just the energy in the space. Some of the highlights here, we have moved the world's largest watercraft collection from Monaghan Road here to the museum, safely, thoughtfully, carefully placed it in the museum. We completed the exhibits, opened up to the public. And you'll recall a year ago that the grounds of the property did not look like this. They were a sea of mud, but the trails were sound and we could walk the paths.
So we spoke a little bit about the school program, or about the day camps, but we didn't mention the school programs. So in September of 2024, we launched full into a pretty much back-to-back schedule of visiting school groups. Which, if you remember, many of you know that I have a deep love for the education programs and spent much of my earlier years with the Canoe Museum teaching them and then coordinating them. So it was a real joy to have school kids back in the museum and to hear that atrium full of kids and their laughter and their joy, having them fill this space and then into the exhibits. And some of my highlights are actually watching the kids on the grounds. So the one brilliant component of this entire campus was that we could have school kids outside during the day instead of inside only. And so our whole programming has been completely reimagined. So there's an outdoor experience and an indoor experience. And the kids are carrying canoes and they're portaging and they're playing little canoe Olympics and they're outside, which is fantastic. As well as getting on the water for the kids that can get the waivers signed, and we're working on that. The other big component of the programming at the museum is partnerships, and I mentioned with Peterborough Field Naturalists, but our media partners. Jeremy mentioned the FAM tour that happened in May before we even opened. And that has led to a really strengthened relationship with our marketing partners. So the Peterborough Port of Tourism was central to making the grand opening a success, and it led to many interviews over the course of the summer and the fall, and it continued into the winter, where we were leading travel writers and journalists from all across the world through the Canadian Canoe Museum. Japan, we did the most extraordinary. Here's a picture here of Japanese TV, one of the major stations in Japan, here for multiple days, and we had them baking bannock, making breakfast outside at the campfire back down there, and that was broadcast live all across Japan, dubbed of course. But Peter Boyce, our program manager, he and the host totally kicked it off. I think he's famous in Japan. And there's lots of awards and celebrations. I know we've shared this through the newsletters and social media and through the website. But we did win the Commercial Development Award presented by the Chamber of Commerce in 2024, which was wonderful to have the local community recognizing the significance of this major commercial development. Of course, National Geographic, one of the best cultural spots, Time Magazine, Time, and the New York Times. There were many
And we were really grateful to be able to have that kind of coverage. Many people have actually said one of the major reasons they were coming to the museum is because they saw us in the Globe, or they saw us in Time, they saw us at National Geographic. We wouldn't be able to do all this work if there wasn't a killer website where people could go and drop in, and all of that is Richella and the team, but managed and coordinated by Richella. So huge kudos for that. Beautiful website. The social media coverage that happens for the museum, it's a very mighty team that we have here, and there's not anything I don't think they do, including run today. I mentioned the weddings and conferences. We were able to host two weddings in 2024. We have many more for this year. It was amazing to see one of the wedding out at the grounds, so right at the docks. They had chairs set up. It was the most beautiful July day. And then the second one was in August with one of the guys who erected the HBC timber frame post in the exhibits. He decided when he was here putting the museum together, he asked us, "Do you guys ever run weddings?" Yeah, we do. And he booked his wedding.
When they had the event, half of his First Nation up in Abitibi came down to take part in it. It's pretty marvelous, because then, of course, the exhibits had a whole different layer of meaning to the event.
Amazing. In the fall, just when we thought we were settling into regular operations, we hosted a board retreat and we revised our strategic plan, which hadn't been done because we were in the middle of construction for so many years. And so we now have a revised strategic plan, including that leads us into 2030. In addition to that, we also reaffirmed the principles of engagement with Indigenous peoples that is fundamental to the work that happens at the Canoe Museum. And so both of those documents are actually in the back of the room if you'd like a copy of them. Of course, they're on the website as well. But they are there because this is really important work that the organization's doing. And rather than, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with our previous plan, but we did have the work that we do with Indigenous people and connecting the Canoe Museum's collection back to community as a standalone pillar. One of the big changes we've made this year is we've integrated it into everything that we're doing. So summer camp programming, artisan workshops, the builder and residence program, even the events that we're hosting. They're all tied together now with our values. And this value, as well as environmental stewardship and working with First Nations and Indigenous people, is thread throughout the whole organization's fabric. And so it just felt right to actually, pencil that into the strategy. So you'll start to see more work coming down the pipes, with that plan as our guiding principle, as our guide. And like Vicky said so well, we raised $45 million on this project, and we were grateful to be able to open the museum with the $45 million raised. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without the donors and the supporters that helped to make that happen. And almost right at the last little bit of the campaign, Stephen Smith and Diane Blake came to us and they made a significant donation, $1 million, right when we were nearing the end, to help get us over the hump. And that was a very transformational gift. And that allowed us to also shift our focus, right, from capital campaign work to operational funding. So funding that actually supports the school programs and the camps and the care of the collection. And so many of you would have seen in the fall last year, we launched the Care for the Collection Unit. And that is really where people can make a commitment and direct their gift to the work that needs to happen to care for this collection, which is extraordinary. And it's a huge part of what we do. And so really grounding the philanthropic side of the museum in the mission work that needs to happen here at the museum. And that's been very successful. And our membership, you heard, has grown significantly. We're up over 1,000 members, which we were many, many years ago. But now we are way back into that level, thanks to the good work that's happening for Kate. And so we look ahead.
to 2025.
Hmm.
And we've got a lot on the horizon.
A lot of firsts, we've launched our speaker series here at the Canadian Canoe Museum. So in 2025, we began with Professor Schrader speaking about archaeology of canoes, this important work happening in Wisconsin, where over 100 dugout canoes have been found in the lake bed dating from 2,300 to 5,000 years old. Astonishing. And that was a great way for us to kickstart the program. We have a number of other speakers over the course of the year. David Bocash Johnson from Curve Lake First Nation is covering a lot of ground in his talk, including portages and cultural landscape and memory. And we're going to be wrapping up with Adam Schultz at the end of the year. Some new firsts now that we are not in a dusty parking lot, but indeed at an outdoor campus. Some of our winter programming involves snowshoeing here out to the lake edge and along the trails and so on. We had a great winter for snow. As Carolyn mentioned, the strategic planning retreat has launched us with a great vision looking ahead to 2030. Which all is informing a lot of the activities that we do that we are continuing to do, but in a much more expanded way, including the workshops that we offer downstairs in the Living Traditions workshop, the camps, the backcountry canoe camps that we're running, as well as the day camps here at the Canoe Museum, paddling courses, certifications, instructor service, etc. The Builders in Residence program during the development of the project, my goodness, how many times did we talk about this? Imagine this, you walk in the front door and you can smell the cedar of the steam box as a canoe builder in residence is just starting construction on a canoe, or downstairs as we speak. Pinnock from Gittiganzibi First Nation he's steaming ribs today for a canoe that he's making a birch bark Jimon. So we're all gonna go down and see Pinnock as soon as we finish the AGM. We have more builders in residence coming over the course of the summer. Music and Museum, we kicked that off with Old Man Ludica. It was an amazing concert. Turns out the building is a great place for performance. The acoustics are just right in the atrium, not a bad backdrop with a stone heart. Of course, we've launched our exhibition hall tours and our collection hall tours. We've got the 45-minute weekend offering taught by our docents. Abigail, she's doing a terrific job, and we also have the 2-hour marathon. If you can suffer through that with me, and with sort of let's find anything to do and talk about this. So much history there.
Ask me anything.
Ask me anything, yes. And this is the thing with this facility. It is designed to allow public access. You know, I think back to the collection's first home and at the Canoe Museum and in the buildings and in the outbuildings, and the collection just grew and grew, and there's so much potency to this collection. And to have it all gathered into one space where we can tour and things are lit and the air is of the right stable humidity and the lighting is good. What a difference it makes, and it's a great future for this collection. Now, book publishing, well, of course, we had a book launch today, just before this AGM, a very important milestone for the museum. The publication of Craig McDonald's research interviewing the elders over the last 50 years. It's a very important step for the Canoe Museum, and later on tonight, we have the opening of our first annual exhibit. I'm not going to tell you too much about that because you're going to be joining me shortly as we open that up.
So the next moment that we're gonna ask you to join us is at the Lakeside Gala. Many of you have attended the galas over the years that the museum has hosted, and we are starting them back up this year. So on October 4th, we're gonna be hosting the Lakeside Gala, and I hope all of you will be able to join us. So put that in your calendars if it's not already, and tickets will be going on sale next week. And it's going to be a load of fun. Signature chefs from the area, a focus on makers, which suits this place, of course. So there'll be wonderful food, exceptional music, wonderful people to be meeting. And we'll be sharing all of that with you shortly, in probably next week, right? Yeah.
Get the ticket, come on.
The tickets will be going on sale next week. So we'll be, we can give you a break and let you know that,
Yeah.
okay? So I hope you feel as inspired by the work that's happening here and the energy and enthusiasm that's in the community and across the country for the canoes and canoes stories that we're sharing. And I hope that you can share that with family and friends and bring them to the museum and let them experience what's been created here. It's quite magic. And it's really moving to see people's experience with it. So thank you for your trust and confidence in the organization, your continued support in everything that we're doing. And I'm very grateful that you're here and hoping that you're able to stay for the exhibit opening tonight at 7. We're feeding you at 6. And as Jeremy said, Pinnock is downstairs building a canoe. And that canoe, neat little fact, is going to be worked into our education programming. Just another plug for school programs. So, Miigwech, thank you, Chrissy.